What it is, what it was, what it shall be. We're back again. Hurry up and don't be late. It's video 88. So let's talk about 88 real quick. Well, first of all, let's title this video. This video is called Mirroring and Moon Magic. Mirroring, magnetizing, and moon magic. Okay, so let's talk about this number 88. This is the speed that the DeLorean in Back to the Future has to go to break through the barrier of time. And of course this deals with Mercury, because Mercury, the planet, takes 88 days to orbit the sun. The number of Mercury has always been 8. In Egypt, in the Kabbalah, in the Tree of Life, we see that the caduceus, the oldest form of the caduceus of Mercury, is just a simple 8. It's kind of open at the top, right? There's all kinds of stuff we can get into, okay? Then we'll look at some of these words that deal with 8, right? Vel Behemah, which means of the beast, right? So tarot card number 8 is Strength card, which is the woman riding the beast in Crowley's version. But, you know, a lion is one form of beast, right? And we know that the sun, if you track its position at the same time every day, if you're to photograph it all throughout one calendar year, it forms a perfect figure 8 in the sky. It's called the analemma. So there's this, all these are important connections with this 88. Another important connection is in Greek, the word Nike, which means victory and it's a goddess of its own, is total 88, which is interesting because if you look at the Tree of Life, Mercury, or Chod, is directly across from Netzach, Mercury and Venus. And Venus, Netzach, is called victory. Pretty interesting. So this gets us into the mirroring concept that we want to talk about for today's video. Mirroring, magnetizing, and moon magic. Okay, so let's look at those. Those are 3 words that all start with M, right? So in the runic alphabet, we have this letter that looks exactly like a capital M in Greek. It's actually like an E sound, but this M in the runic alphabet is the rune for Odin's magical horse that carries him through the 9 worlds, right? Sleipnir. So interesting, right? And that rune is essentially the symbol of 2 lagoons put together. So it's 2 confluences of flowing water that come together, just like Mercury and Venus flow together into Yesod, the moon, in the Tree of Life. And those 2 sephira represent the hips, right? So the hips is kind of like the horse that carries your torso around. Pretty interesting. And we know we also have this concept of Merkaba and the astral body, which relates to the sphere of Yesod and the moon, which we're dealing with moon magic, right? So moon starts with M also. And that M shape is also, if you look at a cube, right? Like edge on, right? So you're pointing one of the vertexes of a cube or a die at yourself. You'll see these 2 sides, right? And then you'll see this little triangle, you know, that joins the 2 sides coming to one of the vertices in the closest vertex to you. If you're looking at it corner on, you know, it forms an M, and that's why the Masonic apron has this M, because it's representing the cube, transforming the Yesod, the foundation of our sexual energy, right? That's the whole deal of Masonry, right? So, mirroring, magnetizing, and moon magic. So, this is an interesting concept, and really, this is the fundamental concept of all wizardry, all magic, and reality itself. Because we exist in a vibrational construct, and one of the key concepts with vibration is echo, right? Reverberation, right? So if you speak something, it goes out and then it rebounds back. You're never going to be in a place where there's no reverberation, because every object will reflect the sound back to you. And we could get into the dome, you know, and this fence around the embryo that surrounds us all, but most people don't want to acknowledge that, so we'll leave that alone. But let's just look at the mandala, another M word, right? The mandala is a sphere of vibration, emanation, and return. And when we visualize our mantra, another M word, right? The mantra, we visualize it rippling out and actually weaving the fabric of the mandala itself through this vibrational bija, this seed of vibration, this syllable and seed, right? And every deity has a seed syllable. Usually it's the first syllable of their name, right? Like Tara has Tam. That's her seed syllable. Ganesh has Gam, right? That's kind of Venus and Mercury in a certain sense, or Parvati, you know. So this vibrational principle is the essence of magic, and it's also the essence of karma. This is the reason why there's always cause and effect. There's always consequences to our actions, right? And so if we're trying to do magic and we're trying to produce some certain change, we use resonance and we emit what we want to receive on every plane possible. Like we use all our senses, right? We have usually a visual image of some kind, a sigil or a mandala or a deity that we're visualizing, or, you know, there's so many ways that can happen, right? So that's a resonance. So you're encoding it in here, you're encoding it in your consciousness, right? And then if you're a good magician, you encode it and you emit it, and then you look around in the world. Well, first of all, you would want to try to surround yourself with everything that's resonant, you know, with the effects that you want to produce, you know, all these vibrational colors, sounds, shapes, everything like that. Okay, so it's this resonance that you're trying to establish, and so you you envelop yourself in it, and you surround yourself with it, right? And you emit it mentally, verbally, visually. You're emitting, reflecting, and absorbing this energy, right? And so, I mean, I feel already this moon magic ritual has been a big success, and we're not even at the full moon yet. So I'm just going to point out that if you use, I'm completely sidereal, you know, as far as astrology. I use tropical astrology for some things. When you're dealing with the seasons, right, and stuff like that, you kind of have to, because the precession of the equinoxes had shifted which constellations rule the seasons. So we use tropical astrology to have, so that our seasons line up with the ancient seasons when this system was all created. But in sidereal astrology, right, when the full moon happens coming up, it's going to be Sun in Aquarius and Moon in Leo. And if you look at the actual stars, like go out on the night of the full moon and look where it is, it's going to be in the tail end of Leo, towards the hip of the lion. And this is confusing too, because the constellation of Leo spreads over into, you know, other constellations, because this system we have of the 12 constellations, it's kind of artificial, because Leo is bigger than 30 degrees, right? Ophiuchus, or, you know, Sagittarius, it expands over Sagittarius and Scorpio, and that's why some people consider Ophiuchus to be the 13th astrological sign. And interestingly, M, which we're dealing with, refers to the Masons, Mary Magdalene, like a double M, right? And this Ophiuchus, this 13th sign of the zodiac that was revered by the Templars, and you know, the secret cult of the Magdalene, right? So, and why there's 13 colonies, and on and on. So yeah, M is the 13th letter of the alphabet, right? So, and our number 88 is 16 if you add it, the digits, and then that in turn reduces to 7. So we see again this Mercury-Venus deal, why they're hip to hip and why they're level with each other, mirroring each other on the tree of life, and forming this M of the triangle of manifestation. And this moon and this manifestation, right, this is what we're working with. We're sculpting into our astral world, and we're sculpting into our own subconscious, right, to build the seed and the mantric resonance to reverberate and echo back to us with what we're trying to receive. And like I said, I was talking yesterday about, in the last video of the that I did, number 87, about this resonance, right? And so I've noticed this all the way back, before I even started the wizarding series of videos, is like I would do these videos like denouncing certain aspects of our society, like the drug abuse culture, and this like recreational psychedelics, which I completely denounce. I don't think anyone should do that. I'm not saying you can't, or you know, it's bad, or it's a sin. I'm saying the mass of humanity who's out there abusing psychedelics, they have no concept of the purpose of it. It's not generally beneficial for them, and it's just giving them escapism into reality. And I see so many of these wooks and people that are all fucked up from abusing drugs. And it's like in social media and stuff like that, if you say anything bad about psychedelics, you will get fucking swarmed. People, it's like a cult, dude. So, you know, and don't get me wrong, I've done psychedelics. I've done a great many of them. I've synthesized them in the laboratory, you know. I've fucking do all that. And I'm a herbal shaman, dude. I do that. I produce herbal medicines. And for me, this is a science. It's not something to be trifled with, okay? These are toxic fucking substances, you know? And they're to be used in extreme moderation and in tiny, tiny amounts, right? And you need to know how they affect your body. To use them effectively, you gotta know what their effects are and the bad effects, because they do have bad effects. And if you're making these preparations, you got to balance the herbs, and you have to change your diet in many cases. A lot of times you need to fast. Like, there's all this whole deal, and we have such a abusive attitude towards all these things. But the point I was saying was, when I come out and say all this information and talk about how psychedelics are abused and how LSD was a US military project, you know, to imprint the consciousness and sculpt the whole hippie generation and implant all this fucking corrupt ass shit into their psyche that's still going on today. You know what I mean? People worship Jerry Garcia, dude. This fucking Masonic, Walt Disney loving, Playboy Mansion loving, fucking human trafficking, fucking drug dosing fucking scumbag. They worship this fucking guy. And if you say anything bad about him or talk about the history of his life and everyone, he was all involved with the CIA and the Nazis, Walt Disney and fucking Hugh Hefner and all these fucking people. He was a bad dude. I mean, he was a good guitarist, I'll give him that. But dude, he was just fucking all tied up with everything wicked about that whole period. And look at him, he fucking was on heroin, he almost died a bunch of times. Like, how is this a role model to people, dude? Bad news, man. But again, okay, so this gets into the mirroring, like I was saying. So when I put out these videos and discuss these kind of topics and talk about how the US government and the CIA and the Masons are all involved in all this drug shit, people come out of the woodwork like bragging of what a drug addict they are and bragging like how awesome their abuse of psychedelics is and talking about how great it all is. And like asking me to confirm all their shit and be like, oh, why don't you talk about how awesome drugs are? And I'm like, and with no sense of irony, you know, they could just ignore everything I'm saying and block. It just bounces off them because they are so indoctrinated into this drug cult, right? And the same thing happens like with each of these videos. Like if I make a really good one and it gets out to a lot of people, it actually magnetizes and pulls in everybody who's got the problems that I'm talking about in the video. So it's, in a sense, you could look at it as having the opposite effect of what I had intended, which was to educate and uplift people and show them the dark sides and the shadows of all these things that they're unquestioningly embracing, right? But yet people would come out unironically bragging about how they're victims of everything that I'm saying. And the same is true with all this like negative feminine archetypes and Lilith and all this stuff and the Whore of Babylon and all this stuff. Like people are coming out of the woodwork to me and following me and liking my posts and everything. And they're willfully embodying all this like prostitution symbolism and black magic and Lilith and all this fucking destructive, consuming feminine power, you know? And you know, this is the magnetizing aspect I'm saying. And it's this polarity aspect, right? Mirroring and magnetizing. So our mirror images are flipped, right? So when I put something out, I get the good side and the bad side. Like you get this mirror, right? And this is a particular thing of moon magic because of how the moon mirrors the sun, right? And in its ideal form, you know, it's positive. It's a balanced, mutual, positive connection between the masculine and feminine solar and lunar energies, right? In its ideal form. But when you get that, you also get the shadow side, right? Of the castrated Samson and Lilith, right? Delilah. So both aspects will come out, right? And so by putting out the good, you're magnetizing the bad, right? And so it's a trip. And so I'm just showing people this and illustrating this to give people awareness of how this plays out with our magic and how we magnetize, right? So this is an important concept to understand. And so always be aware of that. And okay, so a key in Tantra and all this magic has to do, okay, so Iwaz, this rune Iwaz, right? It's a double, and this was Crowley's favorite rune, and he named his guardian angel or whatever who dictated the book of the law, Iwaz, right? So what Iwaz is a yew tree, right? So a yew tree connects the earth and the heaven, and it grows out of this like bulbous fucking deal. It's pretty unique amongst plants, and it's poisonous, right? But it's also a shamanistic medicine, just like all these other things. So it's understanding the connection of these opposites when you're mirroring and magnetizing and realizing they're inseparable. Good and evil are inseparable. They both exist within us. And you can never sever them. That's not a healthy way to think about this. And that's a key aspect of Tantra, is that you got to embrace the good and the bad. And so this is our concept today.